Hello, everyone. Welcome to Random Counter 317 or 317. My name is Jono Logan, and this has been a big week for me in terms of podcasting. If you listened to last week's special episode of Random Encounter that went up on Wednesday, I recorded that last night. And that was like an epically long episode. So tonight I'm recording another episode that, while I don't think it will be quite as long, it does involve two very big games that have just come out. So I want to get this started ASAP. I want to get through this, and so we can get right talking to the games. So joining me today is Jerry. Hey, Jer.
Hi.
Cool. So, Jer, you have been playing a very highly anticipated game, one of my most anticipated games, and I know one of your most anticipated games for 2025, and that is Avowed.
Yes.
So, yes, this is so freaking exciting. I can't believe this damn thing is out. This is one of those games that like has been talked about for literally years, and the fact it's finally out is like almost weird.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where the second game in the series happened so long ago, like you almost kind of forget about Eora and the Pillars universe and all that stuff. You're like, oh wait, no, Avowed's coming. It's not dead. It's still here.
Obviously, if you know this game, or maybe you don't know this game, so it's Obsidian. And this is the latest RPG from Obsidian Entertainment. Generally, they're known for Fallout New Vegas would be like the one that most people remember as their big classic, but also the Outer Worlds and the Pillars of Eternity series, a series of two CRPGs which were partially responsible for the resurgence of the popularity of CRPGs. Like if it wasn't for Pillars of Eternity, Baldur's Gate 3 never would have happened. So they decided to do something a little bit different with the next game in the series for Pillars of Eternity. And instead of it being isometric overhead if not turn-based, but like very classically CRPG, they kind of went with action pause. Yeah. They decided to go with basically people are calling it their Skyrim. Apparently that's originally how it was pitched. So the game evolved from that, and it's no longer like Skyrim. Obviously, Skyrim is a beloved game by many, and it's a massive open world and exploration. This time, Obsidian decided to do something a little bit different, and while it is a very big world and there are very big zones, it is not an open world. So it's very narrative-driven, lot of lore, and very some people say that the combat in Skyrim is terrible. The combat here is apparently quite good and very deep. So, like I said, takes place in the same universe as Pillars of Eternity, and it's a first-person RPG, although it also have a third-person perspective if you get a little bit motion sick, which, incidentally, I did get a little bit motion sick, so we might talk about that in a second. And the interesting thing is this is technically the first AAA Microsoft RPG from Obsidian, because Outer Worlds was an RPG, but it was considered a AA RPG, but this is the first like massive first party release. So, Bob, you spent 80 hours playing Avowed in the last 2 weeks.
Yes.
I mean, how was that? Like you just plowed through this game.
So, I mean, I'm basically hitting the gas the whole way, which while I'm in it is fantastic because I don't want to stop playing. Like when I'm not playing Avowed, I'm thinking about playing Avowed. When I'm at work, thinking about Avowed. And that's always a good telltale sign. You know, I've been gaming since I was a kid, and a lot of games, you know, you can put them down, no problem, walk away, it's fine. Avowed, I'm like, I just want to keep going. And I have those moments where like, okay, I'm just going to finish exploring this part here, and then, you know, I'll go do whatever it is I have to do. It's just one more thing. It's like the Civ, you know, one more turn thing, except it's with Avowed and it's with exploration. Because for me, this world is a phenomenal place to explore. There's always, you know, some sort of neat little trinket around the corner, backpack, a piece of lore, a hill to climb, and a view to see. And to me, that tells you it's a great game. It's kind of that je ne sais quoi. It's that something I can't really put my finger on that just makes me want to keep playing. And that was my experience the whole way through. So 80 hours, I not once got bored of it. The problem is it's a double-edged sword. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's like I'm done with the game and I'm like, okay, now what? Like I don't really want to play anything. Yeah. It's like I miss this world, I miss the characters, I miss the combat, but it's done. Like there's no post-game stuff, none of that. I got the ending, credits roll, goodbye. And, that there's a little pain that comes with that. It's like, I'm like tapping my fingers on the table. Like, what now?
Well, hopefully they actually release some DLC. Hopefully it sells well enough.
It sounds like they will. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, many people, including you in the very first line, actually the very first line is you throwing quite a grenade into the room, saying that you're comparing Skyrim to Avowed. So I just wanted to ask, in your experience, what's the difference between the two?
So Skyrim is an old game, and it's not fair to compare the two. I will say, though, when Skyrim first came out, I bounced off of it pretty hard. I have not really ever enjoyed open world games. And I think that's part of it's because I think open world games of years of old, it's a lot of open space, not a lot going on. And maybe part of it's the graphics, or my personal taste. Obviously, Skyrim, hugely successful, multiple platforms. Everyone loves it. People love modding it, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, some people love it.
For me, Avowed has the benefit of being set in the world of Pillars of Eternity. It is an extension of the world. So I'm already in just for lore reasons, just for the story. I love the gods. I love the different nations. I love the archmages, which are a big piece of this game as well. So that alone makes it worthwhile. But the combat is way more satisfying than Skyrim, for instance. Now, again, Skyrim, old game. This game has got a little more bells and whistles going on. It's got a fantastic stamina system and a fantastic essence system, which is basically your magic points. And you almost get in this rhythm in combat where, you're out of stamina, so you throw a couple abilities. And while you're throwing those abilities, your stamina bar is now full again, and you can start, hacking away with your sword or your bow or whatever it is you're using. So there's no downtime, but you're always thinking. You're like, okay, I need to use this ability in this situation, and it's very active. So you're always on the fly trying to respond and figure out the right way to tackle whatever situation is thrown at you. So combat alone is very gratifying. The world is extremely beautiful, vibrant, colorful. There's so much going on vegetation wise. Like mushrooms are a big theme in the game. Very colorful.
They really are.
Yeah. So there's just a unique world that's not just trees and mountains. There's other stuff too. So it diverts from even the Witcher series in that respect as well. It's like it just looks like a very different place. The living lands are a very different place compared to all the other places that you saw in Pillars of Eternity 1 and 2 as well.
Yeah, I think that looking at some of the characters, and certainly the opening cinematic, my immediate thought was, wait a sec, this isn't Obsidian's Skyrim. This is Obsidian's Last of Us. Because the mushrooms, the fungus, is such a evocative, grotesque thing where these creatures and human beings are infected, and they are, mushrooms are growing basically all over them, and they are becoming monsters essentially.
Yeah. And I can see why you would compare it to Last of Us for sure.
I mean, clearly it's not The Last of Us, but just in terms of mushrooms make people insane and angry.
Yeah. And that's the Dream Scourge, which is the core conflict of the game. I mean, there's many different conflicts going on, but the entire premise, the reason why your protagonist is in the Living Lands is to put an end to the Dream Scourge. The Emperor tells you you're the Emperor's envoy. You've climbed the ranks. The Emperor trusts you. He sends you to the Living Lands to put an end to the Dream Scourge. And that's where the mushrooms come into place. So if you think about mushrooms, they got these vast root systems. If you know anything about mushrooms, they're meant to be not just in your lawn. They're not just popping up out of the ground. There's a lot going on underneath, which is basically what's happening in animals' bodies and human bodies, where they are growing deep inside, and then they sprout, and that's basically the last stage of the infection where you've completely lost it. And it's got these fascinating symptoms, and this is part of why I love Obsidian, is because, how do we make an illness different? How do we make it interesting? So this Dream Scourge has a totally unique pathway of it starts out with weird dreams, very colorful dreams. And then all of a sudden people get a little feverish and they start talking weird. And then before you know it, they're trying to kill you. So it has all these interesting phases that all creatures go through that makes it automatically engrossing. It's like, okay, what is going on? And it's just interesting in a morbid sort of way. It's like, okay, so people are having dreams. Is that person who had a weird nightmare, are they infected with the Dream Scourge, or they just have a nightmare? And, that's also part of the theme of the game. It's like, do we need to like quarantine this person? Are they going to become dangerous? So you almost have like this zombie bite sort of thing going on.
Yeah, that's kind of the feel I got. So like I said, I have a copy of this. I was not able to play it for very long because I was plowing through Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii, which we're going to be talking about in a few minutes. But I was able to play just the opening section, just to get the flavor of the look, the feel, just so I could, be informed and talk about it with you. And one of the things, so obviously I went through the character creation system. And in terms of like for Pillars of Eternity, the character creation system is very detailed and can take quite some time. It seems like here they provide you with some presets essentially. So they kind of streamlined the experience. So you can just jump right in if you want, but also you can get very into it, creating your character. So how did it impact the gameplay beyond aesthetics? Because that was I want to jump back. That was another interesting thing, is that you're a godlike in this game, and you can tell people what godlikes are in a second. But that means that you can pick various physical aesthetic traits that don't impact they don't impact your stats or all, but they do affect how people react to you, and you can customize them. And I thought that was really, really cool.
Yeah. So character creation in these sorts of games is pretty common. Like you could change all sorts of features in the face, like the depth of your cheekbones to how much hair is in your eyebrows and all that stuff. So you can go crazy doing that. You're going to see your character once in a while in conversations. You don't see your character too much. But the neat thing about being a godlike is, for those not aware of the Pillars universe, godlikes are basically people who seemingly at random are born into the world with features resembling one of the major gods. And the gods in the Pillars universe are very important. They're core to the story because they're almost like Greek gods in that, you got the god of birth, you got the god of the sky and birds, you got the god of death and decay. They're more interesting than that. They're multifaceted gods, and they each have their own unique personalities. And as you play the games, you learn more and more about like gods are kind of like just really powerful people behind the scenes that no one ever really sees.
Which is another parallel to Roman and Greek mythology, in which, much like Roman and Greek mythology, these are gods that like to with the people on Earth. Yeah. Well, not Earth, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. And some of them are a little more heavy-handed than others. Like some will inhabit a body, others kind of just sit in the background and just quietly observe. So a godlike is basically someone who is a representative of that god. They're linked, they have a unique bond to a god. So if Hylia, the bird god, the god of birds and sky and birth, is your god that you're linked to, you might be born with feathers on your face or in your hair or whatever. Now, what's different about this game is you're a godlike, but your features don't resemble any of the gods. So it's kind of like, whose god do you have a link to? And you've, figure that out intuitively over the course of the game. But for me specifically, the character creation was less interesting than just how people respond to you as a godlike who isn't represented by any of the other gods, and how unique it is to even see a godlike in the Living Lands. The Living Lands is kind of like a rogue state where it's not an established government. It's more like the Wild West, where a bunch of people from all over Eora who have been down on their luck, or they've committed crimes and are trying to escape, the law, or they've got, trauma or baggage from their past that they're trying to escape, they will come to the Living Lands and they'll kind of just try a second chance. It's a do-over.
It struck me a little bit as like Australia, really.
Yeah, I was going to make that comparison. I don't know if there's any Aussies out there. But yes, it is kind of like that, where it's a bunch of misfits, and it's people who, just based on those characters, they're not really into law, they're not into governments, and you're an envoy of Adir, which is very much a giant kingdom from the world of Eora, and your soldiers from Adir are in Eora, or in the Living Lands, and people aren't happy about it. They're like, hey, we like our independence. We kind of escaped you guys for a reason, and now you're coming here. How about you get out?
The real enemy isn't the Dream Scourge. It's colonialism.
Well, it's an imperialistic takeover. So there's multiple things going on here, right? So you got the Dream Scourge, which no one's happy about because it's killing everyone. Loved ones just seemingly at random will just go crazy and start murdering people. So that's a problem. And then you have the Aedir coming in with all of its soldiers. On top of that, you've got this rogue band of paladins called the Steel Groat who worship Woodica, who is the god of oaths and retribution and kingdoms. And the Steel Groat is no nonsense. Like they just want what they want, and they kind of align with Aedir, but they're kind of doing their own thing anyway. And they're violent, and people associate them with Aedir. So it's this layered, very complex thing going on while you're an envoy of Aedir, and people kind of respect you because you're an envoy, so you're linked to the emperor. You're a very important person, but also you're a godlike. And being a godlike fascinates people because, you're linked to the gods, and the gods are all powerful, and people generally look up to the gods in these games. So you have this unique ability to just go wherever you want because you've got a tie to the emperor. And you're also godlike, and people are very fascinated by you. You don't look like the other godlikes. Whose god are you? I don't know. And these conversations really kind of characterize you as the protagonist, as someone who can come and go as you please, but people still aren't sure how they feel about you because you're still linked to Aedir, and we don't like how they're here in the Living Lands. So you can choose to be completely linked to Aedir in your conversations, or you could choose to say, hey, screw Aedir, I'm here to help you guys, and everything in between. So the dialogue is incredibly satisfying. Sometimes it could feel like there's buckets, like, okay, you got 4 dialogue options. You got the rude bucket, you got the Aedir bucket, you got the anti-Aedir bucket, and then you got like some witty little comment.
Yeah, the Bethesda shuffle.
Exactly. So it's not always that way, but it can very frequently be that way, where you got 4 choices, but really you only have 1 choice, because you're not going to, in one conversation, say, yay, Aedir, and then the next say, boo, Aedir. So your choices appear to be vast, but they're actually quite limited. That being said, the quality of the writing, the voice acting, the word choice, everything is so fantastic that I never minded. I never took issue with it. There were a few moments when none of the dialogue options really appealed to me, so I had to pick the least of all the evils, which that's always kind of a bummer for me because I become very invested in my character. I'm like, my character wouldn't say that, but you just roll with the punches because this is an 80-hour game. They're not going to hit a home run in every single dialogue option.
No, but the fact that Obsidian has a great track record when it comes to voice actors especially, and the writing does shine in this game, just like it did in Pillars or in Outer Worlds or years and years ago, New Vegas. Like, this is something they are good at.
Yeah, and they take pride in. You could tell not just in the acting, but also the direction and, the quality of the presentation. This is fully voice acted, and every single voice actor, I don't care how insignificant they are, absolutely kills it. There's not one bad line in this game, which blows me away because, again, it's a massive game.
Yeah. Well, speaking about being a massive game, and you kind of alluded to this when you were talking about how your character, because they are an envoy, can go anywhere they want. The game, rather than being an open world like Skyrim or another Bethesda-style RPG, features structured zones that you visit that are basically mini open worlds. I would say they're bigger than walled gardens, but not quite open worlds, which allows you to travel around this massive island. And this, I believe that you said this is your preferred method of a large world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I tend to gravitate towards more linear games because most developers, or any developer really, except for maybe CD Projekt Red, can't really do open worlds justice. It is a gigantic task. So I'm not saying anyone's bad at developing games or designing games. I'm just saying you've got a massive mountain to climb. And if you're going to try to create a nuanced, intimate, individualized experience in an open world game, good luck, because it is so incredibly hard to do. That's why I tend to like linear games, because there's just more quality in the path that you're given. I think it can be done well. It's just you really going to be like an A+ developer and know what you're doing going in.
I agree. And the problem with open worlds, another thing, and It's funny, Amanda's playing Tears of the Kingdom right now, and she is loving it just like I loved it. And that is obviously an open world. But if you are looking for a story, if you are looking for a coherent narrative, open worlds work against that because, I mean, it's an open world. You can do anything you want, and that will pull you off of the critical path in a way that side quests usually don't. Side quests are alongside the critical path. But open world, you can get as far away from the critical path as you want. And if you want to play the game like that, that's cool. That's amazing. But some people want the story. Some people want to experience this. And open worlds fight against that instinct.
Yeah, I guess it's just you're going into it knowing you're going to get an open world experience. What do you want out of this game? It's like if you hate puzzle games, you're not going to buy a puzzle game. If you don't like open worlds, you're not going to buy an open world game. But if you're the kind of person who just wants to like explore a beautiful 3D world, then, you know, open world games might be your jam. Like you were saying before, though, this is kind of like it's have your cake and eat it too. It's kind of open world, but it's also kind of boxed in. What I love about many games, like Choices Matters games especially, is like the illusion. We all know choices matter to some extent, right? Does it change the ending of the game, or does it just change how characters respond to you? Can you fool me into thinking, oh, I have agency over what's going on? If you can fool me and it feels authentic, I'm all in. So this is a game that presents as open world. You could go anywhere you want, spin 360 and choose a direction and just wander in that direction. And it feels authentic in that respect. Now, truth be told, if you zoom out and really think about how the maps are designed, you're kind of guided towards routes. There's a beaten path that you're kind of supposed to go down. And if you veer off a bit, you might find some loot or some baddies and whatnot. But it's very contained. But Obsidian pulls off the illusion fantastically. So from my perspective, the world is a joy to explore. And yet it all feels very intimate and detailed, and there's no wasted space.
Yeah, I've gathered that from, well, like I said, I've just started playing the game, and did I mention yet that this thing it made me feel a little bit ill. I don't know why. I just finished playing Indiana Jones, which I was fine with, and then I jumped into this, and within like 10 minutes, I was like, and I'm dizzy.
So that's a bummer.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to screw around with the graphic settings, or just switch over to third person, because third person tends to make people less sick. But regardless, I am in the opening tutorial area. So the way the game opens is you're on a ship, you're the envoy, you come across a fort, and that should be filled with your allies, and the fort fires on you, and the ship it's destroyed, and you wash up on a beach with a person who was on the ship who says they saved your life. And the two of you have to go up to this fort and figure out what the hell just happened. Like, why did they fire on us? And the thing I like about tutorials, at least good tutorials, is it should be a microcosm of the game as a whole. And here it very much is. Like, you get to explore this environment. You get to see some pieces of lore around the environment, like letters and books and things like that. You get to have your first fights, and you even get the experience of talking to a local who is, as we talked about, terrified of you because you are a godlike and doesn't trust you at all. So the tutorial, as far as I can see, is really, really good and gives you a good flavor of what you can expect.
Yeah, so I called it Tutorial Island in my review because, I mean, like you just said, it is tutorial done right. It is not a bunch of dialogue prompts like, pause the game, okay, now read this paragraph. Like, I understand some games, maybe that's the preferred way to do it, or maybe that's how they figured out is the best way to do it. But this, you're playing the game, and by the time you're done with this island and you land in Paradise, you're ready to go. Like, you know all the nuts and bolts of this game. You could just go, which is so incredibly satisfying, because a lot of times in games, you know, you get piecemeal, or like you're still figuring things out as you play. I felt pretty prepared to do everything I need to do once I landed Paradise, with a couple small exceptions, but they are like nuanced things that don't really impact the gameplay at all. So, I was very satisfied with how they opened the game, not just in terms of how to play, but also the story. You're introduced to the Dream Scourge. You kind of get an idea of what's going on, how terrifying this place is. Obsidian just absolutely nailed the tutorial, which it sounds like a small thing, like, okay, tutorial, but that's a lot of people's first exposure to the game. And for them to have done it as well as they did is so important.
Another thing that this does is it firmly drops you into the world of Pillars of Eternity. Like if you play Pillars of Eternity, just in the very first mission, you're surrounded by Audra, which are big green crystals that are growing out of the ground, which are very, very important. They're like organic metallic crystals. And in this game, you enter the fort, and there's one of them there. It's a giant crystal. I guess it's the first time that we've ever actually seen one in a fully 3D space, but it very much says, this is the world you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's. I mean, those are the Pillars of Eternity. Audra is literally how that game got its name, and it's kind of like Mako. It's kind of like, this is where the souls are. This is how when people die, they go through the wheel and then they're reincarnated, which is the life stream, all that stuff. The easiest way to draw a comparison for those who aren't aware. It's not a big spoiler. This is explained in the first Pillars, and Audra. You look at it, it's just a big green crystal. It's very unique in its coloring and pattern. And like you said, it tells you this is Eora. This is definitely a Pillars game. It's continuing the lore. And if I were to criticize, and I've heard this criticism about Deadfire, the second Pillars of Eternity game, I feel like if you're jumping into the Pillar series with Avowed first, you're going to be missing out on a lot of stuff. I think the developers assume that you know a lot about the lore. They assume that you know a lot about, godlikes, archmages, the gods, Audra. So for me, it was fine because I absolutely love this world. But for someone who's jumping in right now, they're definitely not going to get the best experience because there's a lot of references and whatnot.
At the very least, watch a YouTube video about lore before you play it, at the least.
Yeah, and I'm not sure they're going to be fully capable of understanding everything that's going on.
Another thing that's introduced in the tutorial, and obviously throughout the game, is the combat. So like I said, Skyrim combat can be, some people like it, a lot of people don't. It's not the strength of the game. But here it seems like they've developed it into a really, really fun system. So it doesn't only use, you can't just attack limitlessly. There's stamina, there's the essence system. So how does this work in, let's say, not the tutorial, let's say you're a little bit further into the game, you run across a band of enemies. How would a standard battle play out?
Well, it depends on the weapon you're using. That can really affect battle because you have companions. And the companions you choose will kind of balance out what you're doing. So Kai is the first companion you get. He's kind of like your bruiser. He's capable of dealing some damage, but he's got taunting abilities. And you activate his taunting abilities to get draw aggro. So if you want to play a backline character, which I did, I played a wizard. You can safely behind Kai. Let him draw some aggro, and then you just whip some spells, flick your wand. You got a tome that lets you access spells that you haven't learned yet. So you've got a whole host of skills you can use right out of the gate as a wizard. Now, if you're a ranger, similar, you can use your bow from the back line, but rangers can also have a sidearm, which they can use for melee combat. And then you have your warrior class, which can use two-handed weapons, use sword and shield, and then you're putting up your shield to block or your two-handed weapon to block, and then once the enemy's done throwing a fit, you just come in and smack them. And in those cases, there's backline characters you can have that you get over the course of the game that can complement you by dealing some damage and supporting from the backline. So, like I said before, it's kind of like a rhythm, a song and dance. Like, okay, block. Okay, enemy, you're done doing your thing. Now I attack. If it's a group of enemies, you're going to save your AoE skills and abilities for handling those situations. You're going to let Kai draw some aggro, and then you're going to pick off the archer on top of that hill that's killing you. So no matter what the situation is, if you've got even the slightest degree of strategy under your belt, you're going to be able to handle every single situation. There's a neat system where if you die, you come back to life with most of your health. It's called the second wind. And it's kind of like your warning. It's like, okay, we gave you one. If you botch it again, you're done. And then you just load your autosave from before the battle or whatever you decide to load up.
One of the things that I believe this was advertised early on is that though there are, fighter, ranger, wizard, there are classes and abilities, and you can spec into those areas. There was a lot of freedom here to explore different abilities, different styles of play. Because with you can equip, can you equip basically anything as anyone?
Yeah, so you're not tied to a class. Like I leveled some ranger abilities despite running wizard just because they made sense with my build.
Which is a great way to do it. And also, I remember Outer Worlds had this too. Yeah, respecking is pretty easy. It comes at a little bit of a cost, like but not even a big one. Like you can respec your entire character out if you're like this style of gear, it's just not working for me. I'm going to try something else. Mm-hmm. You can do that. You're not locked in, which is a great way to approach. I think it's a really good quality of life feature.
Yeah, there's a lot of unique weapons and few of them are ones. So I was kind of like not partaking in the unique weapons game, which was kind of a bummer for me. I kept holding out for that unique one, and there's a couple, but most of them are going to be spears, swords, axes, etc.
You said you were disappointed because one of the joys of this game apparently is exploration, finding a big treasure chest in a hidden area, and you said that you were always finding like swords and stuff inside, and you were like, stupid wizard.
And not only that, but like even if you don't find a unique weapon, it was actually super strange to me how neatly it was like, okay, a little bit of money, some crafting supplies, a common weapon, and maybe a jewel or whatever. And it was like every single backpack or treasure chest. There was no like random stash of gold. There was no like, here's a bunch of crafting materials. There was no like weird, bizarro trinket that you could get. Everything felt very safe, very predictable, which to me took a lot of the joy out of the find at the end. Now, the hunt is part of the fun. And even though by the end of the game, I'm like, I know I'm just going to find more crafting material and money that I don't need, but I just liked finding the thing. It was just fun to explore. It's like a little bit of cat and mouse. But yeah, the loot in this game is way weaker than any game I played in recent memory. I was shocked at how vanilla everything felt to find.
That seems like something that they could fix in the future. Though God knows if they will, because it would, they have the game balanced and everything. I think that's one of the advantages that MMOs have over single player games is that because MMOs have a constant supply of gamers coming in and players, and more money gets put into them to refine the balance, where eventually it's up to, well, let's be honest, modders to change the balance of a single player game. Like if, for example, Fallout 4, a lot of people have a lot of problems with the balance of Fallout 4. And there are some exceptional mods that simply rebalance the game that make it more fun, strategic, interesting. Do you think that might happen here? If not necessarily with combat, but with like, I guess the rewards.
I would like to say yes. I don't think it's going to happen though, because Obsidian is one of my favorite developers. They are not dummies. Obsidian is a group of highly talented, intelligent designers. I have a lot of respect for them. I'm sure they went this route for a reason. I don't know what that reason is. I would be very curious to know. But if they launched the game this way, I don't think they'd be like, we made a mistake, because this was done on purpose. I don't know if it was just like for expediency's sake or they're testing out AI, or I have no idea. It just felt like I was playing an algorithm at times because it felt so safe. Even the unique weapons, while some of them, if I was like, if I was a fighter class, I would definitely be using this axe or whatever. Even the unique features are very safe. So I think they just prioritize balance over giving players these power spikes, which I don't really understand, because a single player game, like let the player have fun. Let them find it like a ridiculously powerful axe if they're using such and such strategy. But all the unique features felt very safe. Like you kill an enemy, you get 3% of your max health back. It's like, I mean, that's kind of cool. I could just eat food or chug a potion, but like, I don't know why I would ever need 3% of my max health back. Or you do 10% extra fire damage. It's like, okay, that's very safe. Contrasting that, the skill trees are fantastic. The abilities you have the opportunity to learn, as well as the upgraded features of all of those activatable abilities, are extremely fun and unique and different. And when you put an upgrade point into something, it feels momentous. It feels like you really gained something useful here. Whereas the unique weapons and stuff just felt very safe.
I have to admit, like I'm personally a giant fan of exploration in games like this. That's really what I love. And theoretically, exploration should be its own reward, where you go on this little adventure. But the reality is, if a successful exploration is a story, yeah, the story itself might be good. But if it ends anticlimactically, it kind of shades everything that came before that. So even if they have great little, I guess, short stories where you're exploring the world, you find a I don't know, you find a dead body and you're like, oh, what happened here? And that kind of thing. If you get to the end of it and there is no worthwhile reward, it is going to make you go, which might actually, disincentivize doing it again in the future.
So I think part of it is also how different it is from Pillars. And I have a lot to say about this, but Pillars of Eternity, the design is action pause. So it is a slower game. It is a very plotting, purposeful game. It is a slow burn, and I love it for that. Some people want something faster. Avowed will cater to that crowd because it's definitely a simpler game than Pillars of Eternity, which has...
Pillars of Eternity is not easy.
No, it's not easy, and the abilities are extremely complicated, and you're micromanaging all these different units, and then you'll start, see a second or two of gameplay, and then pause it, and even 2 seconds might be too long. So you're constantly thinking strategically. It is slow. The lore you pick up is volumes of text, whereas in Avowed, there's a couple of those, but for the most part, it's pretty snappy reads and all exceptionally well written, just like in Pillars, but a different kind of read.
You're less likely to find a friggin' novel sitting on a desk, for example.
Exactly. So I think because Avowed is an action RPG, and I think because of the way it's designed, it is meant to be snappy. It is not meant for you to, okay, let me stop the game, look at the material, read the lore, do this. It is meant to be more active. Pillars of Eternity is intended to be slower. It is meant to be savored, not rushed through. And as far as the vibe is concerned, the two games feel different. And it's not just because Pillars of Eternity is isometric, top-down-ish, and you're small little people. I've been saying this for years, and I haven't heard anyone else say it. I'm sure it has been said before, but you cannot see the sky in Pillars of Eternity. You can see it in Avowed, which I think has a lot to do with the vibe and atmosphere of these games. So I think some people might play Avowed and be like, okay, I know it's set in Eora. I know they're referencing events that happened in Pillars of Eternity, but it doesn't feel like Pillars of Eternity. I think a lot of it is because you see this bright sky, which is fantastic. It's a beautiful sky. When the stars are out, it's beautiful, but it feels different. I think Pillars of Eternity feels dark and broody, in part because you don't get that perspective where you can see everything up and above. It's kind of like everything's just grass or dirt or vegetation, and it feels different.
That's an interesting thought, actually. It's something that, we generally think about perspective as directly impacting gameplay. So first person, obviously, can be much more immersive because you're seeing through the eyes. Third person, one step removed. And then there's isometric, where you feel like you're controlling these characters. And that comes into play in CRPGs, action RPGs like Diablo, or in strategy games like, StarCraft. But we rarely think about how it impacts the way that you absorb the world around you, and the way it changes how the world feels. So that's very interesting that you were like, this is the same world, but I am viewing it in such a different way that it almost feels different to me.
Imagine if you could see the sky in Diablo. Diablo, also isometric, top down, can't see the sky.
Yeah.
Just a theory.
That's an interesting idea. No, it's an interesting idea. I imagine that rendering the sky also increases the load on your computer. Now, you have a pretty good computer. You mentioned that in the review that your performance was generally solid throughout. However, your PC fans were running loud. I have to admit, in the short time that I was playing it there, mine were too. And I have a pretty good graphics card. Not cutting edge by any means, but good enough to run it on high. Did you experience any other technical issues with the game beyond that? And if so, I imagine hopefully Obsidian will patch them before, let's see, we're recording the 17th. Tomorrow, it comes out tomorrow. So hopefully they'll be able to patch it up before tomorrow.
So again, huge respect for Obsidian. They've got a great track record. They're consumer focused. They put out good products. They're experts. Some of the best developers in the industry. While my fans were running, I ran this on Ultra. The frame rate was consistent. There was no pop-in, and that blows me away because a lot of games have pop-in. I think part of it is because things are segmented. So it's not like one giant open world. It's like 4 or 5 pods of areas. So they don't have to load everything all at once. I was actually blown away by how smooth the game was, how vibrant and beautiful it was, yet there was no stutter. Like I said, no pop in and everything. There were no glitches. There was no one like falling through the floor. There was like not a lot of clipping either. Like I couldn't see very many people's arms going through doors and stuff like that.
Yet another way that it's separating itself from Skyrim.
Yeah, yes. But even today, separating itself from most games today, there were no blurry textures. You know, you think of like Final Fantasy Remake 7 Rebirth and Remake. Like,
oh yeah,
there's blurry textures in those games. Now, granted, they're bigger. Like, you want to talk open world. Like, these are gigantic games, also very beautiful. But they've got their issues technically. Avowed doesn't have it. And I think that's the part people are not going to pick up on, because you go into a game just expecting it to work and for it to look good. And when it looks as you expect, you're not like, well, gee golly, this game looks great compared to the other games. Like, you're like, no, I got what I paid for. This is what I'm expecting by today's standards. And then people move on. I think Obsidian deserves so much praise. I had some issues initially with something about the shaders when you first load up the game. It's like optimizing shaders or whatever. They patched it. So I did have issues initially where it would freeze on loading up the game, but that stopped. So they addressed it very quickly before the game's even out. So I had to deal with it. No one else has to deal with it. Sometimes it would take me a while to get the game loaded. I have to close it, open it, close it, open it. But aside from that, technically, I mean, Obsidian deserves an award, really, because for this kind of game with this kind of look and these kind of features, to run this well is a marvel. And I'm not being hyperbolic. I mean every word I'm saying.
There's a Douglas Adams quote from his last book, which isn't really his last book. It's basically a collection of random pieces of writing that they found in his computer after his death. And some of them are just like quotes that, you know, he probably was going to put in a book in the future. But one of them, which I think is very perceptive and gets into human nature, especially when it comes to video games, is we notice things that don't work. We don't notice things that do. We notice computers. We don't notice pennies. We notice e-readers. We don't notice books. I mean, this was well over 2 decades ago. But I feel like you're right. Like, Obsidian does deserve all of the credit for not releasing a broken mess like, well,
Bethesda,
or like in their defense. Okay, in Bethesda's defense, also Fallout New Vegas. Like, yeah. Fallout New Vegas is still a disaster if you're not playing it with fan patches. But like, I honestly feel like if it works, people don't really complain about it, but they don't even comment on how, you know, wow, this is great. My computer hasn't crashed. The program hasn't crashed. I'm not getting any slowdown or anything. They only notice that when it doesn't work. So hopefully, you know, I'd love to see a shift in human perception. But this quote is from 2 decades ago and it hasn't changed since. So
it's a fact. Yeah. Unfortunately, because, you know, you will complain, but you will not credit. And that is a fact. And part of it's human beings, but also part of it is because games should run properly.
Yeah, they really should.
That you should get what you paid for. And if you're paying $70 for a game like this, it should run properly. But unfortunately, it's the exception to the rule, because even big budget games don't run this well.
Yeah, and it's really, really nice to see, especially after the debacles over the last few years, especially with things like Cyberpunk and things like that, which the games were broken. That you have like, wow, this is a game. And not only is it a game that was running, it's probably a game that is still going to get patched. And even the things that are wrong, because it's impossible to fix all of them, are going to get fixed.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk quickly about, I need to jump over to my game for a minute, but I have a few more questions I wanted to ask you. We talked about the acting, the voice acting, exceptional quality. How's the music?
Oh, the music is also phenomenal. And it's a shame, because I think in a lot of like traditional Japanese RPGs, you know, your Final Fantasies and all that, like the music is highly memorable because it accentuates a character's entrance or some dramatic moment in the plot. Whereas I think in a lot of Western RPGs, the music almost becomes a complement to the atmosphere. It kind of falls into the background. And without being consciously aware of it, you're having a much better time playing the game by virtue of having an orchestral soundtrack playing in the desert while you're navigating the desert. Or you're in a dungeon and you've got like this eerie sort of cavernous sort of sound playing while you're, you know, spelunking. I think if you stop and just listen to the music for a second, you'd be like, holy cow, this is fantastic. But it doesn't have the momentousness that you would find in a Japanese style RPG.
Yeah, Japanese style RPGs, generally speaking, are more like, I don't want to say I mean, I come from music theater. And it's not just music theater. It's like there are motifs, character motifs. It's very, the music is specifically designed to elicit an emotional reaction and underscore the story that's being told. Where it does seem like for a lot of Western RPGs, the music, as you said, is underscoring everything you're going through and fades into the background in a way that is not invisible, but adds to the environment and the experience a little bit more passively.
Beautifully stated. I'm going to load up this podcast later and just like literally just take what you just said there and explain to other people. I have such problems explaining this to other people, but you said what I've been trying to say for years. And that is exactly it.
Passively is not an insult, by the way. Like it's not.
No,
like I know people are like passive, but like that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about the music is ignorable. You can just forget about it.
No,
it's there and it contributes to the whole.
I have the soundtrack for this game, and I will be loading it into my Spotify, and I will be listening to it because it is that good. And I'm very picky with my music, so this soundtrack's phenomenal. You're just not going to be actively aware of it, having tears running down your face during an emotional moment, because this isn't that kind of game.
Yeah, it's very different. And also games where Final Fantasy and a lot of JRPGs, with the exception of some like Chrono Trigger and things like that, your main character is usually a character like that is going through a very specific journey and a very specific story is being told around them. Whereas for a lot of Western RPGs, it's a character creator. So your character, while the main character of the game, is a little bit more passive. Like it's not like your character is going to start crying in the middle of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is more like a gritty sort of high fantasy sort of game, and you're not going to have those character arcs in this.
Yeah, but that's not what it's for. Speaking about what it's for, just as a final thought, in the review, you do say that Avowed it shines by keeping things simple but well designed, and that's in contrast again to Pillars, which is exceptionally complicated and well designed. So let's say that this game is a pretty big success, and I think the reception of this game is absolutely baffling to me. It's really weird. I'm really, really excited. Like we said, it comes out tomorrow. I'm really, really excited to see what gamers have to say about this game. I'm not including capital G gamers in that. I mean, people who are playing the game. No politics. I just want to see how people approach it. Because the reviews for this game are ranging between like best RPG of the year. There's not even going to be a contest to it's pretty damn good. So I'd say between 70 and 95. You gave it a 90, which is an exceptionally good score. Let's say it's a big success. How would you want Obsidian to refine this formula for a sequel?
So I waffled about editor's choice because, one of the things we talk about on the site quite a bit is like, okay, you gave him 90. Do you want to get editor's choice? Like once it hits 90, does it automatically get editor's choice? And it's a decision I take pretty seriously, actually. I feel like a game really needs to do something exceptional. Like a game could be fantastic. It'd be like even a 95 and not get editor's choice just because it's not doing something that like stands out. This is a high quality game. I think the vast majority of people will enjoy it if they allow themselves to. And editor's choice is for your taking risks. And I would say the one grievance I have with this game is it feels so safe. The story, separate. The story is phenomenal. It is a story that weaves so many different conflicts together. It's got a lot of interesting things to say. It deals with issues of trauma very maturely. The character arcs are fantastic. Like the story is a separate thing. And as far as playing the game, it is so safe. It is so vanilla, but I think that allowed them to make a very crisp, very well-balanced game that feels chewy the whole way through. You're not going to be thinking a whole lot. You're not going to be like doing high strategy the way you did in Pillars of Eternity, but it just feels too safe. If they do DLC or something, or they do another Pillars game, which please God, Obsidian do that. I take more chances. I know we're looking at sales. What does Microsoft want? And all that stuff. There's all that stuff happening behind the scenes, but this is a bizarrely safe game for a studio that is so talented and has shown it through years and years of just putting out bangers.
Do you want to know something interesting, Jer? I had the exact same feeling about The Outer Worlds. Now, Obsidian has released other games since then, smaller scale games. They released Pillars of Eternity 2, and then a few years later, that following year, they released The Outer Worlds. And I really like The Outer Worlds. And a lot of people say, spiritual successor of Fallout, that kind of feel. But it is safe. It is very, very safe. It's good, but it's very safe. And then Obsidian also released, they released Grounded, which is, I think, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, but co-op. And then they released Pentiment, which I would argue is not safe.
No, and that's another fantastic. Oh my God, I could talk about the game all day.
But then Avowed. And Avowed is very similar, very, very similar to The Outer Worlds, in the sense that Outer Worlds is a spiritual successor to Fallout, and Avowed is their take on the Skyrim-esque game. And both of them are extremely safe games. They don't really try to rock the boat. Again, nothing wrong with that, but it is a little interesting.
Yeah, it feels almost like a waste, just because, again, I keep talking up Obsidian. I feel like I'm putting on a pedestal at this point. But, like, you got so much talent, and you've shown it with so many other titles here. Like, I'll let you cook. Like, do what you got to do. I know someone else is writing the checks, but, like, you trust your developers to take some chances.
Yeah, and Obsidian does, like, especially early on in their careers, like, they did things that were not safe. Like, I mean, Fallout New Vegas obviously wasn't safe because you could fall through the world map. But like Stick of Truth, which is a surprisingly good JRPG, like Pillars of Eternity, obviously. Then they went to Tyranny, and that's not safe at all, just based on the subject matter.
Oh my God!
Bad guys won, and you're evil.
Oh my God! Put out another game like Tyranny. Someone have the courage to make another game like a Tyranny. I can't believe that game exists.
Yeah, it's crazy. So yeah, The Outer Worlds 2 is coming. They say The Outer Worlds 2 is coming in 2025. There is no goddamn way The Outer Worlds 2 is coming in 2025.
Impossible.
I don't even want The Outer Worlds 2 to come in 2025, because if it is, I'm going to be very tired by the time it comes out. But they say it's coming out in 2025, and I'm really hoping that Obsidian looked at The Outer Worlds and was like, okay, what can we do to differentiate this, put our own spin on it, make it it's not even necessarily innovation. I know what you're talking about, Jer, and it's really, really difficult to put into words. It's not innovation necessarily, but it's just doing something a little bit different that makes it feel like, well, Obsidian.
Well, and also, like, I don't like comparing games to other games. That feels very reductive. Like, it's not Skyrim, it is Avowed. Why am I comparing it to Skyrim? Well, because they made a game that feels a lot like Skyrim. And if they took more chances, I wouldn't have to compare it to Skyrim.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, regardless of that, it's a very, very good game. You gave it a 90. People are really enjoying it across the board, and I really can't wait to see what the reception is when this thing hits I was about to say store shelves, but you know what I mean.
I hope people love it as much as I did.
Yeah, I do too. And I'm going to keep playing it because, well, I'm going to keep playing it simply because I want to see if I can not get sick.
Keep a bucket next to you.
Keep a bucket, yeah. It didn't make me that sick, but it did make me go, okay, yeah, these lizards are moving around more than they actually are.
There's Zorps, actually. Push my glasses up.
There's the lore we're looking for.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. Well, speaking of motion sickness, let's pivot now to an adventure on the high seas.
Wow. Okay. Nice transition there.
Thank you. So another game that's coming out this week is Like a Dragon: Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii. So if you've listened to this podcast, you know how much I love Yakuza Like a Dragon games. I'll just give a brief little summary here of the series. The first Yakuza game debuted in 2005 on the PlayStation 2, and this featured Kazuma Kiryu. It was a crime story that at the time a lot of people said was the Japanese GTA. It wasn't, but it became a bit of a popular kind of cult hit. RGG Studios, the developer of it, eventually they founded it in 2011, and since then they've become the primary developer of all of the Like a Dragon games. Some of the ones that folks listening might know, Yakuza 0, for example, in 2015 was probably the most popular one of the series, and that had dual protagonists, Kiryu and Goro Majima, who was the perennial antagonist / best enemy friend of Kiryu and a very fan favorite character. And people just fell in love with playing Majima, just adored playing Majima. And that's one of the reasons why Yakuza 0 was such an astoundingly good game. A few years later, about 5 years ago, Yakuza Like a Dragon entered the scene. And this shifted the series away from the beat-em-up style combat that it had been known for up to this point, and shifted it into a JRPG, turn-based combat, very much inspired by Dragon Quest of all things. And it introduced a new series protagonist, Ichiban. So, despite this, they really did have a good thing going with the real-time combat. They didn't want that to end, so they shifted it over to a sister series called Judgment. But they also started releasing Gaiden titles, so like smaller stories that they could tell in the Yakuza Like a Dragon universe that wouldn't take them 100+ hour games. And they could recycle some of the content from the mainline games, get a little bit more use out of them, which is a good idea because they seem to release one of these things every single year. And my God, that's got to be exhausting. So the first one was released a few years ago. It was starring Kiryu, Like a Dragon Gaiden, the man who erased his name. And this was exploring his life after Yakuza 6 as a secret agent type character. I did not like it. I did not like it at all. I thought it just felt like a filler. It felt like content. It had a real, and now you know the rest of the story kind of thing to it. And I was just like, maybe this isn't going to work. But then they announced Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii, which was Majima you get to play as him for the first time since the DLC for Yakuza Kiwami 2. And you're a pirate. You're a pirate in Hawaii, and it's Majima dressed as a pirate, and he has a pirate ship. And this is going to be a swashbuckling adventure. And for the most part, it was. I really enjoyed this a hell of a lot more than I enjoyed The Man Who Erased His Name. Man Who Erased His Name had a lot of problems with it. This had some problems with it, but for the most part, it was pretty successful. It delivered basically what it said on the tin, which is, you're Majima, you're a pirate, you have a pirate ship, you get to fight at sea, and enjoyable time. I enjoyed this game. I didn't love it, but I really enjoyed it.
Does it feel cartoony? Because I get cartoony vibes when I look at some of the artwork.
Honestly, I wish it did.
I
wish it did, because what's really kind of annoying about it is the game opens. I'm not going to spoil anything big. There is a big spoiler in my review, but I have it marked. So if you read the review, don't worry about. You'll be able to skip over that paragraph, and I won't be talking about it here. But it opens with Majima sitting on a chair, dressed as a pirate, recounting his adventure. So we are getting this, at least in the first part, it's being framed as a flashback, and it's being framed as Majima's perception of what happened. And for the first few minutes, we even get shades of that, where he meets a young boy named Noah Rich, discovers Majima washed up on a beach, and Majima has lost his memory, but still seems to have most of his knowledge of the world, and obviously his fighting skills as well. And Majima literally jumps in. The Majima of the future, sitting in this chair, jumps in and says, "Yeah, we're just going to gloss over the whole language barrier thing because I only speak Japanese and Noah only speaks English, and we're just going to pretend that's not a thing."
I love it.
And it's like, oh, okay, so it's going to be that kind of game, and then it's not that kind of game. It's everything after that is very, very as grounded as it can be for a Japanese Yakuza to become a pirate, and there's pirate ships roaming around, like actual old-timey pirate ships roaming around the Hawaiian Islands. And the reason why it's doing that, of course, is because they need to reuse Infinite Wealth's Honolulu map because it is a exceptional location. They spent so much time, money, and energy and effort on it that clearly RGG Studios are masters of recycling content. And my question when I finished Infinite Wealth, I was like, well, how the hell are they going to reuse this? Because, I mean, they can set one game in America, I guess, but are they going to continue to be set in Hawaii? That's a weird choice. And the way they deal with that here is technically Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii is almost a coda for Infinite Wealth. So here's the problem. If you haven't played Infinite Wealth, if you haven't played Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, I don't think you should play this game, because the entire basis of the game is picking up on the loose plot threads left behind by Infinite Wealth. The state of affairs in Hawaii at the beginning of this game is picking up on what happened in the last. And that is a smart choice in terms of, okay, yeah, I totally understand why we're using the Honolulu map, but it doesn't really lend itself to being a good standalone story.
Should people want to play Infinite Wealth?
I think people should want to play Infinite Wealth. I loved Infinite Wealth. I think it's one of the best JRPGs.
That would be a bummer if it was not a good game. So to play this good game, you need to play this bad game. So at least it's good.
Yeah, and I mean, this isn't a bad game. It's not, but it is not as good as Infinite Wealth. I think few things are as good as Infinite Wealth.
Wow.
I loved Infinite Wealth. I just adored it. Infinite Wealth gave me the feeling of magic that I get when I'm playing, I get when I'm playing a Like a Dragon game. Like early on in the pandemic, and by early on in the pandemic, I mean like March and April, I was in the midst of reviewing the Yakuza Remastered collection. And I think I talked about this in the last episode in the Canadian episode briefly. Because of that, the brief moments of happiness and magic that those games gave me really carried over. And unfortunately, you kind of some of the games have less of them, but Infinite Wealth gives you some of those moments where it's like, oh, this is special. This is great. Unfortunately, Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii just doesn't give you that sense of magic. It's comfort food. It's junk food for a Yakuza fan, basically. If you like Yakuza and you like the classic series with the combat, and you like Majima, then oh yeah, you're gonna like this. You're gonna have a good time. It's fine. You're gonna have a fun time. You're gonna load it up. You're gonna go on the pirate ship. You're gonna fight with Majima's new pirate style with sabers and pistols and things like that, and you're going to enjoy yourself. But it's not going to give you that magical feeling that a really, really amazing Like a Dragon game, like, well, Yakuza 0, for example, can give you. And that's another problem with it. The ship-to-ship combat, for example. Bob, have you ever played any good pirate games?
Yes, Puzzle Pirates, which most people probably have not heard of, but I sunk so many hours into that game.
Okay, well, I'm just gonna. Naval battles can be kind of tricky in video games because there's a lot of aspects you need to manage, and obviously you're dealing with cannons, things like that. The ship-to-ship combat was a major selling point of this game, and it's fine, but that's all it is. It's a very, I don't want to say generic because it's not necessarily generic. It's very workmanlike. It's not surprising. There's nothing surprising about the ship-to-ship combat in this game.
Pillars of Eternity 2 Deadfire had a ship battling mechanic that was not great.
Yeah. And I mean, apparently the gold standard is Assassin's Creed 4, I think. And this is somewhat inspired by it. But like, there's nothing in the ship-to-ship combat that says this is a Like a Dragon game. Like, for example, there's no heat actions. There's no over-the-top madness. It's just kind of like you rush the ship in front of you. You rake it with machine guns from your ship, and then you turn your ship to the side using your afterburners, and you fire your cannons at them. You can ram their ship, but that's basically it. And then, of course, what happens once you disable their ship? Then it becomes a Like a Dragon game because you board them, and then you and your crew, because you have to assemble a crew in this, which is one of the best parts of the game, can board the ship, and then you have to fight a massive battle, your crew against theirs. And that's a lot of fun. And that's, I think, the best part of the game for me in terms of the gameplay. But there's a lot else here there's a lot here to recommend it. I mean, Majima is still an absolute delight. I played the game in Japanese with English subtitles, as is I played them all with this. Whenever I play with English, it just feels weird to me.
I agree.
It feels really weird. Although I have to make mention of something that happens in this game. I don't know whether or not this is in the English version, but the Japanese version has a lot of English in it because it does take place in Hawaii, and so like a lot of the incidental things that are being said in the background and stuff like that are English. And some of the English that is being spouted off by some of the background characters, especially the thugs as you walk along the street, I really do feel like perhaps a Japanese writer took the phrase "I'm going to kick your ass," and then they put it into Google Translate, and Google Translate spits something out, and then they put those words in the mouth of these characters. Because constantly, as you are walking down the streets of Hawaii, you have enemy characters screaming, "I'm going to beat your whole ass off." And then they scream, "Get your ass ready," which is like, I know the spirit of it was intended, but like, wow, that's suggestive. Like, buy a Yakuza a drink first. It was just like, okay, that's weird. And there's a few moments of that in there as well. Yeah, it's very, very funny, but eventually it was just getting ridiculous. On the other hand, the English version of the game, because a lot of people are going to play this in English because their first game would have been, for a lot of people, their first game was Yakuza Like a Dragon, which, you know, you could pick between the Japanese or the very first English dub of the series. And here, you know, Majima, it's the first time as Majima's main character. Matthew Mercer has taken over for Mark Hamill was the original voice actor for Majima back in the very, very first Yakuza. And I mean, it's Matthew Mercer. He's, you know, Dungeon Master extraordinaire, voice actor, incredible voice actor. Yeah. And I haven't played the whole game with it. I just played a bit, and he nails it. He does a great job. I like the biggest part is he nails the laugh. If the laugh wasn't there, the character of Majima wouldn't be there. But he does nail the laugh. The laugh is there. He sounds a little too good during the karaoke. Like Matthew Mercer has a really nice, like, dulcet tones of Matthew Mercer kind of thing. And when he's like trying to rough it up as Majima, it sounds like he's putting it on as in the karaoke. But you know what? Fine. It's totally fine. He sounds great. And the rest of the English voice cast does a great job too. But honestly, I just played the damn thing in French. What am I saying? I just played the damn thing in Japanese. Before, there is one thing I did want to mention here, because it is one of the worst things I've ever seen in a Like a Dragon game. I think I mentioned this in my review of it. In Like a Dragon Gaiden, The Man Who Erased His Name, they brought back the Cabaret Club. And unfortunately, it was not the Cabaret Club from Yakuza 0 where you're running one. It was you go to the Cabaret Club and you talk to a hostess. And unlike in the earlier games, they decided to do a weird thing, which is these sections were live action. They just like set up a camera and they recorded the actresses playing the hostesses. And it created this weird reverse uncanny valley thing. Where it's like, yeah, it's like you're so used to like you're playing in engine and everyone has a character model. And then all of a sudden you're looking at these real world representations of the characters. And they almost look wrong because that's not what the game looks like. So in this game, they go one step more and they do a full-on live-action dating reality show sub-story. And it's FMV fully through, and your ship's cook is trying to find love, and you find him 3 eligible ladies, and the next morning, the eligible ladies have decided, nope, he's not for us. And you quiz each one about what happened. And then you get a video that's like a section of the live action dating show.
Wow.
And it's bad.
That's a weird choice.
It is the worst kind of awkward, terrible skit comedy. Like, I think you're watching it and you're like, oh, I think that's what they're going for, but I don't know why they're going for it because it is cringing just to watch. Like, I hate skipping content in games, but I literally just was like, after watching 35 minutes of this, I just said, okay, I'm just skipping the rest of these.
You don't think they were self-aware?
I can't figure out what the hell they were doing.
Wow.
I really can't. Like, it's bad. Like, honestly, I'm not joking. It knocked 2 points off my score.
Maybe that's why Obsidian's not taking risks.
Yeah, that's why that's what you want, Chair. You want Obsidian to have a live action segment just smacked in the middle of the game. A good old fashioned Sega CD kind of like interactive
sewer
movie.
Shark.
Yeah. that would be the stuff. Well, anyway, that's it. That's Like a Dragon, Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii. And I mean, I know I'm not talking about it a lot, but honestly, there's not a tremendous amount to talk about. It's a Gaiden. If you played a Like a Dragon game, you know it. And my biggest problem is, much like Avowed, it is incredibly safe. Like, when I first saw it, I was like, this is nuts.
Yeah, no, that's why I asked if it was cartoony.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like Majima on a pirate ship in Hawaii. That's insane. That's such a great idea and just wacky and stupid. And it's not like Yakuza hasn't gone down that path before. I mean, I haven't played it because I don't have a PlayStation 3, but it's the only one I haven't played that hasn't been released in America. Dead Souls. Dead Souls is crazy. Dead Souls is, hey, what if there was a zombie apocalypse in Kamurocho and they actually follow it up and everyone has a gun? And it's like, it's crazy. It's bizarre, and it is very cartoony. That's where I was hoping they were going to go to with this. But instead, it's just a story about Majima with amnesia. And what's even more annoying about that is, even though he has amnesia, he's still Majima. Like, they could have told a story about, like, who is this character at his core? Who is this character when you strip away the 40 years of Yakuza-related trauma? And maybe he has to rediscover who he is. But, like, you don't. It's still Majima. Like, other characters, returning characters, are like, wow, he's really different. And I'm like, is he? I mean, he's still giggling every time he gets into a scrape. He's still flinging his knife around. He's still like the exact same character he always is. He just claims to not have a memory. And I thought that was a missed opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like, unfortunately, the takeaway for me anyway, hearing about it is like, okay, it's a good game. It's a competent game, but it's a missed opportunity. And, you know, what could have been overshadows what is.
Yeah, exactly. Like, just the fact that, and this is me I don't want to write the game, but just the fact that there are no heat actions in ship combat. Like, the best part about both turn-based and real-time combat is the over-the-top heat actions where you can, as Majima, like, you know, throw your knife in the air, do a backflip, kick the knife into a guy, laugh at them, pull it out, or in the case of Like a Dragon, like insane over-the-top essence of various summons and things like that. But there's nothing like that here. It's just, you know, fire the cannons until you wear them down, then board them. And it just seems like missed opportunities all over the place, where this could have been such a bizarre, interesting concept. And instead, it's just another Like a Dragon game. And that's not a bad thing. I gave it an 82. Like, it's not a bad score, but it's just a Like a Dragon game.
Yeah.
It's their daily release. And I have to admit, I'm getting a little bit concerned, because as much as I loved Infinite Wealth, this is a 2 out of 3 are just more content in the last few years. I guess, actually half, because they did release the remake of Ashin, which wasn't more content. That was a unique piece, but that was a remake of a very old game.
So it feels a little potato chippy. Like, you like potato chips, but I'd like to eat something else.
Seriously, like, they just gave me another bag of potato chips, and I'm like, all right, I'll eat the potato chips. I like potato chips. These are crunchy. They're good. They're salty. Lovely. But at the same time, it's not like I'm going, oh yeah, this is a kettle chip. These are Lay's. These are like,
oh no.
These are good chips, you know, decent quality, not terrible, but they are by no means like kettle cooked, crunchy, delicious, you know, premium chips.
Black pepper.
Yeah. Anyway, before we go, I do want to do a quick discussion question. I think this is going to be a really quick one, because this episode ran a little long, but that's okay. So my discussion question for you, Jerry, is both Avowed and Like a Dragon have had a massive change in the genre of their historical series. For example, in Avowed's case, it's moving from, as we talked about, real-time with pause, isometric gameplay, and the perspective of Pillars, to the first third-person action combat of Avowed. And in Like a Dragon's case, it was moving from an action RPG to a turn-based RPG. So I was thinking, if you could pick another one of your favorite series to undergo a change in genre or mechanics while still being like that series, what would it be?
Oh, man. So I actually put a lot of time into this question, because, you could pick I could turn anything into a strategy RPG and I'd be pleased as punch. But like, what would be an interesting innovation? And I came up with 3 ideas, and 2 of them I'm pretty happy with. Crypt of the Necrodancer as a rhythm-based first-person action RPG. Kind of like Metal Hellsinger. Like, you got to, like, in order to do the action RPG things, you got to go in rhythm with the music. I think that could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think that was the Doom-like that came out a few years ago, right?
Yeah, but like this one with RPG mechanics and stuff. Horizon as a terraformer / city builder.
Ooh, I like that. You could actually play as Gaia.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think when you play the Horizon games, a lot of it is like, hey, we're just trying to like survive, and we're trying to expand, and we're trying to like use technology to our benefit. I feel like you've kind of got the essence of a city builder right there.
You could do a city builder. You could also actually do a real-time strategy game like a StarCraft or things like that, where you are Gaia and Hades is on the other side, or Hephaestus, and they are building enemy machines, and you have the ability to build machines and use humans as well.
Actually, that's a fantastic idea. And there's such a variety of species of machines that you could definitely, have all sorts of units and tech trees and buildings and whatnot. So that's a fantastic idea. And then the last one was Monster Hunter as a merchant simulator, kind of like Recettear. I don't know if you've ever played Recettear, but I
haven't, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Like, you could sell food, you could sell weapons, you could outfit the people in Monster Hunter who are going out, and then you could play as the fighters who you just outfitted, which is what you do in Recettear. It's like half you take equipment and you're selling it to people, and then the other half of the game is like an action RPG where you're fighting things with the goods that you just purchased. So
yeah, that'd be fun too. I think all those are good ideas. I was a little bit less ambitious. I just have one. And I think I've said this before, but it's what I really, really do want this, and they'll never do it. But I think that they should. I think this would be an unexpected hit. And that is, I really think that Nintendo should have another try with Zelda as a side-scrolling Metroidvania style game.
Oh, okay. That's cool. Yeah. And they've done so much with Zelda already in terms of genres just over the lifespan since the Nintendo. I mean, why not? Like, Nintendo will do whatever, right? Souls-like, open world game. Yeah, it's whatever.
Nintendo do what other people don't.
Yeah.
But yeah, they have all the building blocks up this. They have the historical precedent, which is Zelda 2, which isn't a Metroidvania, but certainly has elements of that kind of thing. They were the originators of Metroidvanias, or search action games, I guess is what some people try to call them. I still like that. I'm going to call it Metroidvania because that's the word that people use for it.
Zelda 2.
Yeah. So they have Zelda 2 and they have Metroid. And it seems to me that Zelda games already do have Metroid-esque elements, where you go to a dungeon, you get the new item, then that unlocks exploration items in exploration paths in the world. So you could genuinely use Zelda 2 as a prototype, but then use your classic Metroidvania style exploration and dungeon crawling to make a pretty cool Zelda side-scrolling game. And I would really love to see that.
I think it's a phenomenal idea. Actually, I kind of really hope Nintendo's listening and will do it, because when I watch a lot of speedrunning and a second monitor while I'm playing games, and I do a lot of retro speedruns. I see people speedrun Zelda 2. I'm really fascinated by this old game that I hated as a kid. I hated Zelda 2. It was just too hard. But the people who love it love the exact things you're talking about. It's a side-scrolly, kind of puzzly, sort of Metroidvania sort of exploration, and that's their big takeaway. They don't care how hard it is. They speedrun the game. They know how to play it, but they love that aspect of it, the Metroidvania style aspect of it. People who don't like it are usually people who are just this game's stupidly hard and I can't figure out what to do. So I think this would take off. I think people would gobble it up.
To be fair, it is stupidly hard and people don't know what to do.
That's right.
To be fair to them, that this is both things can be true at the same time.
That's right. Which is why it's a prototype.
Exactly. But you've established that Zelda has a history of being a side scroller. So take that, get rid of the game design, just map your Metroidvania style game design on top of it, or steal Symphony of the Night so you can add in some RPG mechanics, and I think you could have something real special.
Again, Nintendo being as skillful as they are, I think they could knock it out of the park.
I think it could be something special, and who knows? We might see it. Who knows? I mean, Naughty 3 is coming up pretty damn soon, and we're going to be getting the reveal of the Switch 2, with the games and things like that, really, really soon. So who knows? Maybe something like this would be in there. I mean, they've got to have some stuff to put in the release lineup. Maybe this could be it.
I can't wait for Keighley Fest.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be an interesting year this year, I think. Yeah, we'll be talking about that in a few. Oh my God, we'll be talking about that in a few episodes. That's disturbing to think about. Well, anyway, so we're just gonna wrap this up now. So if you're looking for a way to support us here at RPG Fan, we've opened up a store. So you know about this. It's www.rpgfan.com/shop. Inside, you can find all kinds of merch from us, and you can also find our collaboration with Hyperplay RPG, the RPG Fan Review Card Collection. And you can find nearly 300 of our review cards in there. You can see our review cards on Instagram, designed by Steph. Both Jer and I have multiple games in this book. So I think it's just wonderful. I love this little thing. So you can check that out.
Do you think I could say I'm a published writer?
Actually, yeah, you could. I mean, it is published.
Cool. I'm going to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I have to admit, like I've said this before, but as a fan of game magazines that I used to get in the mail when I was 8 years old, having like my reviews in a book on a shelf is like,
yeah.
And that's not something that anyone gets anymore because game magazines are, they're dead.
I'm right there with you, though.
Yeah. You can also check out our past episodes of Random Encounter if you'd like to support us. This was a super fun episode. Our last episode was a very special one to me. It was last Wednesday. It was literally a special episode because it was released on our off week on a Wednesday. And it was a Canadian encounter. So I had on some of the Canadian members of staff, and we shared some of our favorite Canadian games. A lot of games are Canadian, and a lot of people don't know they're Canadian, bizarrely including Canadians. So we got to talk about like Spiritfarer, and I talked about the Crimson Diamond, and we talked about Slay the Princess, and 1,000 Times Resist, which is one of the last year's best games. So yeah, check that out. Really, really proud of that episode. Over at Retro Encounter, as you know, they have gone bi-weekly with Zach as the host. And in the last episode, it was the Hironobu Sakaguchi encounter, where they talked about the history of the creator of the Final Fantasy franchise and other historic games, which I am positive that many of the people playing this episode have played in the past and love. You can also have Rhythm Encounter, which is RPG Fans music podcast. The last 2 weeks, we had an off week because Rhythm Encounter was doing their two-parter Best Music of 2024 episodes. So those were the last 2 weeks. And absolutely go give those a listen because there was some astonishingly good game music that came out last year, and they're covering it in that one. So if you wanna relive the best parts of 2024, give that a listen. If you'd like to get in contact with us, you can fire us off a message at podcast@rpgfan.com. If you have any ideas for future episode themes or discussion questions, or simply want to reach out and be like, hey, what's up, Jono? You know what? I would love to tell you what is up. So just fire me off a message there. If you'd like to contact me directly, you can do so at jlogan@rpgfan.com, but you can also find me on Blue Sky at jonologan.bluesky.social. Jer, where can we find you online?
bob@rpgfan.com. Don't overthink it. And
I try not to.
Yeah, just shoot me an email. Even if it's hate mail, I'll be kind. I'll be professional. I take it seriously. Yeah, just say whatever you want to say. I can grow and learn.
Absolutely. And the great thing is, if they send you this massive insulting email, you can just be like, well, this was meant for Bob, not Jerry.
That's right.
It's nothing to do with me.
People have done that before, though. And then I'm just nice when I respond, hey, thanks for reviewing my content. I understand where you're coming from, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, I expect you to yell at me. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, this is not this kind of environment. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your friends to help us get the word out there. You can also rate us on iTunes or your other podcast players of choice. Jer, I want to thank you for two reasons. One, for joining me tonight. And we had a bit of an interesting recording session where we had to jump platforms. So thank you for being with me. Incidentally, if you hear a slight difference in audio quality, but the conversation sounds like it's going smooth, that's just editing in action, baby. So thank you very much for helping me navigate that. And thank you very, very much for playing 80 plus hours of Avowed, which is not a small game, and you just plowed through it. So excellent job. Wonderful. And I want to thank everyone out there for joining us, and everyone listening, whatever you are playing, have fun.